Hi guys, welcome to this complete tutorial about dimension lines. In this video I will teach you how to insert a dimension line and I will explain the difference between standard and annotative dimensions. After, we will talk about dimension line types, which are those that you can find in this panel. And at the end of this video we will focus about advanced settings as well. How to insert a standard dimension line. So it's very easy. I only need to go to the tab Annotate, then to this section Dimensions, and click in this icon here. I could also type the command DIMLAYER. Now I click to specify the first point of my dimension line and then the second point. After I drag the mouse a bit up and click again, and here you have our dimension line. But it looks like I cannot see the numbers because they are too small. This means that we need to edit the dimension lines. So let's click in this arrow here in the dimension section to open the dimension style manager. Now we will select this dimension style that says standard and we click in modify. Then the first thing we are going to change is our text, because we cannot see it. We go to the tab text, and where it says text size, we have to increase it to a bigger number, because it's too small. And for example, 20. Then in symbols and arrows, I change the arrow size also to 20. I click in OK and then close, and as you see, the text and the arrows are now visible for this situation. In fact, the value 20 for the text size, it's the text height, this distance here. And the value 20 for the arrow size means its length here. Now, as usually I don't need all these decimals here, I will show you how to get rid of them. In this window to modify dimension styles, I can go now to primary units and I click in this tab that says precision and choose the option with no decimals. Also for the suffix, as I want this to appear in millimeters, I type mm here. I click OK and close. And this is how it looks like. Now imagine that I want to convert the units to meters. So 500 millimeters, I know it's 0.5 meters. First, we change the suffix to only one m, that means meters. And we need to put a scale factor of 0.001, because 1 meter is 1000 millimeters. At the same time, we need to change the precision, because if I want to appear 0.5, we need at least 1 decimal. Now I'm closing the windows, and here you have 0.5 meters. In this next part of the tutorial, I'm going to focus on annotative dimensions, and you will understand the difference between these and the standard ones. In the Dimension Style Manager, you can see this icon, which indicates that this style has annotative dimensions. So, if I use annotative dimension lines, they will appear in the paper with the same size, even if we have viewports in different scales, like here. So, first of all, I will click in the tab Annotate, and in the Dimension section, I click in this little arrow here to open the Dimension Style Manager. Here I will click on the annotative style, and I will click in Modify to edit it. Now we are in the section text, and we can see here the text height, which is set up as 3 millimeters. As this is a good size for viewing in the paper, I will not change it. Then I go to symbols and arrows, and also the arrow size has 3, which is good for me. So I can click in OK. Now close. OK, now I can start. But before, I will show you a new tip which is available since AutoCAD 2016. So I'm going to type DIMLAYER, press enter, and I have to insert the name for a new layer which I want the dimension lines in, for example dimensions. And by doing this, every time I create a new dimension line, it goes automatically to that layer. So let's start drawing annotative dimensions. First, I want to draw these 2 dimensions here, and this viewport is in a scale of 1/100. So the first thing I have to do is to change the scale in this icon and select 1/100. Now I can type dim linear or click in the icon over there, press enter, and I'm going to draw the dimension line here. I click in the first point and now in the second point. But as you see, the text here is very small, and it happened because I forgot to change the current dimension style. So going back, I can change the style here and select Annotative. Now it should be fine. So I click in the first point and the second point and I place it here. For the next, I press enter to reactivate the previous command. Now I click in this point and now the second, and here it is. So if we go now to the layout, you can see that the arrows and the text are visible, and when I print, the text and the arrows height will be exactly 3 millimeters, as it is what I specified before. Now let's draw the lines which are in the viewport with scale 1/30. So what do you think I should do? It's simple. Do the same process. I have to change the scale to 1/30. Now I will draw again the dimension line here, and then I will draw these other 2 here. When I zoom out to see all the drawing, you can notice that the dimensions I just made are much smaller than the other ones. But in fact, if I go to the layout, you can see that they have the same size in both viewports. I also need to tell you another thing. You cannot see the dimensions here, because as I drew them in a scale of 1/30, they will only appear in the viewport that has the same scale, which is this one in the right. Now, the last thing I want to talk about in this video, it's very important, are these icons here about annotation objects. The first one here that says Show Annotation Objects. If it's switched on, all my annotation lines are displayed in the drawing. Now I'm going to deactivate it and look what happened. The dimension lines I have there disappeared, and the only ones that you can see were made with the scale that appears here, which is 1/30. So if I change to 1/100, you will see only the other ones. Okay, in this part I'm going to show you different types of dimension lines that I can insert. There are those here. To insert a dimension line, I can click in this icon here, and then I click in 2 points which I want to measure. For example, I click here and after in this point, and then I click again to place the dimension line. So it's easy as this. To open the panel to edit dimension lines, I have to go to Annotate, and then in the Dimension section, I click in this arrow here. This window is the Dimension Style Manager, and I can edit everything related to dimension lines. To learn more, just click in the link that appears now. So, let's see more types of dimension lines. If you click in this arrow here, you can see all these different types that you can insert. Before I drew a linear dimension, and this time I'm going to choose this one that says aligned. As you may remember, before I clicked in this icon, which is for general dimension lines, and it will use the type which fits more in each case. Okay, let's put an aligned dimension for this line. I'm going to select both extremities, and as you see, it measures the distance between the 2 points. On the other hand, if I would put a linear dimension and choose again the same points, this is what's going to happen. I could just insert a vertical or a horizontal dimension. Now, I'm going to add an angular dimension. This time I click in this one, I select 2 lines, and it inserts the angle between them, and it can be in any side of the intersection. If I click in the arc length, as you can imagine, I can measure the length of the arc. So I just click on it, and I can insert its full length. Now I am going to insert a radius. I click in radius, then select the arc again, and I can place the arc radius where I want. Apart from radius, there is also another option to insert a diameter, which is the same process. You can just see the difference between both symbols. Now, I will also explain you the ordinate dimensions, in which you can add dimensions from a reference point, like here. But before using the command, we need to place the UCS in the point I want coordinates 0, 0, 0. So I type escape to cancel the command, I click in the UCS, I click in this square, and I can move it to the corner of this rectangle. So after now, all the distances are related with this point. I'm going to activate the command DIMOrdinate again, and I'm going to place a horizontal dimension between the center of this circle and the origin. Then I do the same for this one, and as well as the horizontal, I can also do vertical, like this. And the same for this small circle. As you see, I can keep doing this to all the points I need. Let's check out about some advanced options in the Dimension Style Manager, and sometimes they can be quite useful. Let's see. I'm going to open the Dimension Style Manager, which was here as you remember. Now I choose my style and click in Modify. I'm going to explain now some of these options. Baseline spacing. This only works when I am using baselines. And what is a baseline? If I have a dimension line here, and I'm going to click in this icon that says baseline, and I can draw several dimensions from the same point. For example, I draw this, and then I can draw another one until this part. So the baseline spacing is the distance between two baselines, which in this case is 100. This section that says suppress, I can suppress each arrow. If I click here, you can see in the drawing that the first arrow disappeared. And if I click here, I suppress the second one. Extension lines. These are the bars that delimitate a dimension line. Here I can change colors, line types, and line weights. And below that options, I can suppress each extension line. Extend beyond dimension lines. These are those distances here. If I change it to 100, you will see that they will increase. Offset from origin. That is the distance between the point where I click to insert a dimension line and where the extension line starts. Because it's too small, I have to zoom in a lot to see that distance. If I change it to 50, you will notice the difference. Fixed length extension line. If I check this box, the extension lines will have all the same size. Let's click here and change it to 30. Now this distance is only 30. Now let's change to the tab Symbols and Arrows, and here we will learn more options. Arrowheads. Here we can change the arrowhead. As you see, you can choose one of all these types. So if I change it, it also changed the second arrowhead, because usually we want the same for both. In case we want a different type for the second arrowhead, just click on it and change it. And if I click in OK, you can see how it looks. The center marks are used for circles or arcs, and they are used for radius or diameter dimensions. I can have the regular one, this one, or I can choose to not have a center mark or a line. Now welcome back to the tab lines, and there was an option here that said extend beyond dimension ticks. This only works when we have the arrowhead as a tick, for example this architectural tick. And if we go back, we can add an extension after the tick. For example, if I type 100, you can see what it does there. The dimension break, it's used for breaks in the dimension. I will show you. If I have two dimensions that intersect each other, I can click in this icon that says break. I select the dimension line that I want to break and the one that will intersect. Here it is, and that distance is the size of the break, which I can change it here. If I type 100, you can see now that it will increase. You can see now that the break size changed to 100. Arc length symbol. When we draw arc lengths, whose option we can find here, we can change the position of the symbol. For example, currently is located before the dimension text, but we can place it above, like this, or we can choose to not have it. linear jog dimension. But first, I'm going to explain you what is a jog in a dimension. When we want to add a dimension line to a section that is much larger than what is represented, we can add a linear jog by clicking in this icon. We select the dimension line and then we click in the position where we want to add the jog. So here you have it. Also, because my real distance is bigger than this, we can double click in the number and change it. Anyway, I will show you the jog height factor, and it's the proportion between the jog and the text height. Now it's 0.75, and if I change it to 2, you will notice the difference. And you can see that the jog height is the double size of the text. Text appearance. Here we can change the text style, standard or annotative. We can change the color, or we can add a fill color, for example green. The fraction height scale is only active when we have the primary units set up as a fraction. And with it, if we change the fraction scale, for example to half, you can see the difference. Text placement. This is related to the placement of the text, obviously. We can have these options for vertical, horizontal, or we can change the direction. Just play around with it. Offset from dimension line. The distance that we type here, it will be the distance between the arrowhead and the number. I will type 100, and here it is. Text alignment. This will specify the position of the text according to the arrow. For example, now all the text is horizontal. If I click in Align with Dimension Line, you can see that now the text is aligned with the arrow. Then the last option of ISO Standard is mostly the same as the aligned option. The only difference is when the text doesn't have space to be displayed inside. With the ISO option, it displays horizontal. Okay, so it's everything in this tutorial. Thanks very much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to Cut in Black to watch all the tutorials of Autocad. Again, if you need online private lessons, just check in my channel page or send me an email to cutinblack@gmail.com. Thank you and hope to see you next time.